Oh, hey there.
Oh, hey there.
I'm Kate.
And I'm Bradley.
I don't think we're prepared.
And we're the History Buffoons.
That's right.
Otherwise known as I Don't Think We're Prepared.
No, I'm prepared because I have a drink and I have my story and I have my headphones on and I've got a microphone in front of me.
What do you have in front of you?
A microphone in front of me, and all the cats are put up except for Penny because Penny's not.
No.
She does not get tricked into treats.
We have literally said that, like, I think on the last episode or two.
My apologies.
She was out. So if any one of your 5 cats are going to be out, it's Penny.
Okay.
She's pretty great.
She is. Okay.
So tell us what you're... I mean, I'm still not for this, but tell everybody what you are going to try again.
Okay, so a couple episodes ago, I had a Carbliss.
And do you remember the flavor? That was a strawberry margarita.
It was strawberry margarita.
Otherwise known as alcohol cleaner.
Yeah, it was Windex.
Yeah. And we're back. Sorry about the technical difficulties there. We didn't really think about this plug that needed to be on because we plug in our little pod track recorder and it powers off the wall and the plug wasn't on and my battery backup died.
We're like, what the hell just happened?
Because I'm like, did this thing just take a shit?
No. I have to tell everybody is waiting on bated breath to hear about my Carbliss.
Al is not waiting on bated breath.
But
with
what I
bated
say?
Breath. Everybody.
Yes. No, Al is. Okay. So
anyways.
I had the strawberry cleaner kind.
Strawberry cleaner kind.
So my friend who told me to try Carbliss, I told her what my situation was. And she goes,
like, oh, no.
Yeah. She's like, no, that's the worst one. I was like, well, now you tell me. And she goes, you need to try the original. I was like, okay. So I have the original. It is Carbliss tequila cocktail in regular margarita flavor.
Do you find it funny? Because I know they have multiple flavors that you happen to pick the one shittiest one.
Apparently.
I mean,
I'm just that skilled.
Well, if anyone was going to do that, it would be you.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that this is going to be a redeeming beverage.
And, okay, let the listener know.
I have a backup beer called Modelo. Just in case.
Just in case this one goes awry.
Yes.
So I have a brand new Sierra Nevada that I've never seen before until, well, today. So the new Sierra Nevada that apparently recently came out is a hop tropical IPA. Very vibrant can.
And it makes me feel like summer should be right around the corner. And yet it's about to snow.
Yeah, like another 4 to 6 inches, maybe more. So
okay. Cheers to hopefully.
Oh, wow. She's not waiting for me at all.
I'm not.
I'm waiting to see this.
Okay. The margarita flavor is 90% better, but the back end.
So do you know what 90% of times 0 means? Because that's what the score of the last one was. It's still a 0. But,
this one is better.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's better.
Might as well get that Modelo ready. Oh, with that, okay.
Okay, so it's got 0 carbs, 0 sugars.
Hence the name Carbliss.
Yeah, and fake sugar makes me kind of twinge.
Yeah, I just witnessed that from across the room. So, all right, well, since she couldn't wait for me, I'm going to try my beer now.
Yes, tell me how this lovely tropical beverage is.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah, that's really good.
He's not even going to describe it. He's just going to keep drinking.
No, it's got a nice, it's not like a hazy. It's got a nice juicy back end to it. Mm-hmm. It's because obviously, like, I like their Torpedo's my favorite. Mm-hmm. All year round beer. Celebration's my favorite winter one. But no, it's really good. It's got a nice juicy flavor to it.
Cool.
Good thing I brought a backup.
So I have a question for you.
What's your question for me, Kate?
Have you ever been DNA tested?
No, because that's mine, not everyone else's.
So you wouldn't do like the 23andMe?
Oh, fuck no. I don't need to be in some database in some country. No. Have you?
I have not, no. Okay. But I have been genetically profiled.
And did they just cry when they saw the results or laugh? Or?
Not that I saw.
Okay. They did it in a different room then.
But yeah, exactly. So I got all the the feedback on over the phone. So if they cried, it was before they talked to me.
Okay.
But it was just a test to see if I had a genetic marker for breast cancer.
Yeah, you had told me that.
Yeah.
I was obviously joking, but no, I don't think I would ever do one of those tests.
I mean, you have to admit, it is a little
Sketchy?
intriguing.
Oh yeah, that's the word I was going for. Intriguing, not sketchy. My bad. The problem I have with that is like your DNA makeup is in some database somewhere, and when AI takes over, they're going to start making robot Kates, and they're going to come and kill you.
Or are they going to go to work for me?
No, because you don't own them. They're gonna take your job, and you're gonna be unemployed.
They've caught like really bad killers that way because of people putting in their 23andMe DNA.
Explain.
The Golden State Killer.
Okay.
They found the Golden State Killer
Because he did a 23andMe test?
No, because someone in his like generational line did it.
Oh, okay.
And they narrowed down like a bunch of people, and they got to him.
I really don't want to know if I'm related to a fucking serial killer or anything like that.
It's not that you would know. The police would know how to get to the serial killer because the profile is in there.
But that's my point. They're going to use that without my knowledge. It's like, no, that's no. Fuck you. No, I'm good. The only serial killer I want to know is one that kills like Fruit Loops or something.
Fruit Loops?
Yeah, that's a cereal.
Oh, geez.
There you go.
Took me a second.
Yeah.
My bad. Okay, so we're going to talk about a gene.
Like Eugene?
Gene, so kind of.
I mean, yeah, I knew a Eugene.
I mean, we
once.
could call it Eugene.
Yeah.
But it's actually called Delta 32.
Like, okay.
Like Delta Force or Delta Burke.
Delta Burke. Are we watching some Designing Women later?
I love that you know that reference. It's such a great show.
Oh, man.
It really is.
That's
okay.
funny.
So, picture this. The Middle Ages.
I like that time frame.
I know you do.
I'm a big fan, actually.
There is...
I'm going to cheers the Middle Ages.
The Middle Ages.
I just want an excuse to sit in my beer.
The Middle Ages.
Yeah.
Okay, so cheers to that.
I'm in my Middle Ages.
I know. I tell everybody that. So there is a disease.
Yeah, there is.
Oh God, I need a Modelo.
Oh, see,
it's the fake sugar. It's the fake sugar. I can't.
You don't have to like give it a reason. It just sucks. You don't like it.
No, it's just the fake sugar I don't like.
Who tried to talk you out of that again? Who tried to talk you out the first time and the second time?
Myself.
Oh. No, not yourself. You were just trying to be nice to your friend who suggested it and be like, okay, I'll give it another shot. It's just not for you.
It's really not for me.
So just let it go. Let it go.
Modelo.
Unlike Rose, you'll let it go.
Okay.
Even though she did do the same.
There is a disease.
Yes.
In the Middle Ages.
Called Delta 32.
No, that's a gene. The disease is the Black Death.
Yes. That's not also known as the bubonic plague. Those are two different things, correct?
I will get to that.
Okay,
but
cool.
Great question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I always mix that up.
Yes. That is a great question, and I do reference that at the very end.
Excellent.
So, the Black Death, they do call it a plague. So, it tore through Europe and Asia in the 1300s.
1300s, okay.
Yes. So, it started in Europe in 1347, October, if you will.
Oh, if you will.
12 ships.
Hold on. I think one of these days, I'm going to go through all of our files, and I'm just going to make a burp track.
I'm going to stop you right there and say no.
All right, sorry, continue.
It's the bubbles.
The bubbles. My bubbles.
Yeah. At least it's coming out of that end and not the other end.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, okay. Moving on.
Might have to turn the fan on. 12
ships sail into Messina, Sicily.
Okay.
From the Black Sea.
Okay.
And when people go to meet the ships, they are in complete shock because most of the sailors are dead.
Yeah.
And the survivors are super, super sick. And they are covered in these nasty, oozing black boils.
Oh, gross.
Yeah. So I'm a pimple popper. Like, this sounds disgusting. And I like abscesses and lymphomas and
This is a bit worse.
this is a lot worse.
Yeah. This is not just popping a pimple on. Ooh, you got a pimple on your cheek. Let me get that for you.
So the officials in Sicily understandably are freaked out.
Understandably,
and
yes.
they tell the ship, sayonara, you got to get out of here.
Yeah, go back to sea.
It's too late.
You see?
Over the next 5 years, the Black Death kills over 20 million Europeans.
Isn't that wild?
That's a third of the whole continent.
Wow. So there's roughly 60 million population that took out 20 million.
Yes.
Holy fuck.
Yes. So even before those ships showed up in Messina, people in Europe had actually heard of rumors. They called it the Great Pestilence.
Yep, I've heard that.
And it killed tons of people along trade routes in Middle East and Asia.
Sure.
So it turns out the disease had already hit China, India, Persia, Syria, Egypt in early 1340s.
Okay.
And so the ships came in 1347.
Sure.
Okay. So people think that the Black Plague started way back over like 2,000 years ago in Asia and probably like traveled along these trade routes.
Okay.
But some newer research suggests that it actually might have been as far away as 3000 BC that this plague came into root.
3000
BC.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So this thing's potentially been around for 4,500 plus years at that time?
Yes.
Wow.
So pretty soon after hitting Messina, the Black Death jumped to Marseille in France,
Of course.
Tunis in North Africa, and then it spread to big trade hubs like Rome and Florence.
Yep. Yes.
By mid-1348, Paris, Bordeaux.
Hey, that's my nickname. Isn't it Bordeaux?
Sure, Bordeaux. Yeah, that's right. Good on you.
Good on me.
Paris, Bordeaux, Lyon, and London are all infected.
Right.
Okay, so the plague spreads through the air, person to person. They also get bites through insects, fleas on rats, essentially.
I would imagine a mosquito sucks your blood and then could pass it or whatever.
But this one is specifically fleas.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on rats.
So it could be transported by rats. Because wasn't that how the bubonic plague was?
Yes, but these were
spread?
Fleas on
No, I get
rats.
that. I get that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that the bubonic plague was rats.
Yes.
Basically. Okay.
Okay, so these pests were everywhere in medieval Europe, and they loved ships for some reason.
Who doesn't?
But that's how the plague traveled like so easily from European port to port.
Okay.
So the Black Death didn't just disappear after that first wave in the 1300s. It actually stuck around Europe like a bad fucking dream.
Yep.
It would pop up in outbreaks every so often for centuries. And the plague kept coming back in waves, though nothing as bad as like that initial pandemic. So these outbreaks happened throughout the 14th and 15th centuries, sometimes just hitting local areas and sometimes spreading wider.
Right.
So while still serious, the later outbreaks weren't nearly as deadly as like the original Black Death.
Right.
So, and it's possible that some of these people had more immunity to it, or maybe things just changed a bit, like
it mutated a little bit.
Or hygiene changed, something like that.
They brushed their teeth.
Something.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So now we're going to fast forward to the end of 1664.
That's a good year.
You were there.
There is a beer called Kronenberg 1664.
Yeah.
I think I have that right. I could be wrong.
Is that a place?
Probably. Yeah, it is. Anyways, I was there.
So at the end of 1664, a comet flies across the night sky.
Oh.
And Londoners think this is a bad omen. They're all freaking out because they're like, what's coming?
Is that kind of like in Game of Thrones when that red comet was flying over? They're like, ooh, dragons are back. Do you remember that?
I mean, who has a red comet?
I mean, Game of Thrones.
Well, so London at this time.
That was a great interaction.
London. I gave it all it was needed.
Which was nothing.
Exactly. So at this time, London was only about 448 acres.
Oh, what? Okay.
Yeah, and it was surrounded by a wall originally built for defense. So on like 3/4 of this, it's a wall. On the other side, it's the Thames River.
Right.
Okay. So to get in and out, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 gates. I held up 8 fingers.
Oh my! And
there's 7 gates.
And the fact that you even counted them out in your hands was even better. And the fact that you got it wrong was even exponentially better than that.
Okay, so 7 gates, and then there's also the London Bridge across the Thames.
Did it fall down?
So.
All right, so continue.
Okay, so poorer areas of London were super cramped, tiny apartments all jammed together.
Cheapside?
Pretty much.
I mean, that's what they call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was no cleanliness, no sanitation.
So can I ask a question real quick? Mm-hmm. If there was no cleanliness, was there not godliness either?
Probably not, no.
Oh, fuck.
I know.
Christians, I tell you. Another burp coming. The girl.
So there are open sewers running right down the middle of these roads. Cobblestones are disgusting, covered in animal excrement, trash, whatever people threw out their windows.
Yep.
Muddy, fly covered in the summer, and straight up sewage in the winter.
This sounds terrible.
And they had these people that would like clean up a bit throughout town.
Right.
But people pretty much just dumped whatever they could out the windows and were all rotted and piled up.
Can I say something real quick? Because before I forget it, for the last Origin of Weird, you did Pure Finders.
I sure did.
And I mentioned that truck that I saw with the service.
Yeah.
I saw it again today.
Yeah.
The service is called Duty Calls, spelled D-O-O-D-Y.
Nice.
Anyways.
So the sewage and everything in the streets stunk so bad that like everybody was walking around with handkerchiefs over their noses.
Yeah.
So coal and other trade necessities came into London on barges, but mostly arrived by road. So if you can imagine these 7 gates, carts, carriages, horses, people all crammed together, and these gates created like a bottleneck.
Okay.
And London Bridge had like 19 arches, and that was even worse for travelers.
Sure. Yeah, I bet.
Rich people would hire hackney carriages, which were like hired carriages. They were taxis, if you will.
Sure.
And then they would also use sedan chairs. Do you know what a sedan chair is?
I don't.
It's one of those like wheelless chairs that people are actually like holding up while you're sitting on it.
Oh, that's what they're called?
Yeah, sedan chairs.
Oh, because I think they had another, at least like an older times name, but okay, I didn't know they were called that.
Yeah, so people would use those to avoid the mess. Of course, the people walking through are getting splashed with who knows what.
Yeah, but they were probably
lowest of the low.
Yeah, and paid pittance to do it too, which is unfortunate.
And then there was air pollution going on.
Sure.
Factories, breweries, iron smelters, homes burning coal, thick black smoke, hard to breathe, right?
Yeah.
Outside these walls were unplanned little shanty towns.
Right, because there was nowhere to live in town.
Yeah, exactly. So craftsmen and workers had to make do with what they had. Exactly.
Yep.
So the first cases of the plague appeared in the spring of 1665.
Okay.
So the comment was at the end of 64.
Right.
The plague was obviously devastating.
Right.
It estimated that between 100,000 and 150,000 people died.
Jesus.
Which is about 1/5 of London's population.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It spread so fast that it peaked in summer of 1665 when over 7,000 people died in 1 week.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
It's 1,000 a day?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
That's sad.
So to try to come up with a way to like stop the spread, they came up with this quarantine idea.
Okay.
If you know, you know. Pretty much everybody knows.
I don't.
Yeah, you do.
No, I don't.
You never quarantined during COVID?
No.
Weirdo?
I was an essential worker. I had to sell my beer.
People had to be. I needed beer.
Yeah, you do. You don't need a Carbliss. You need a beer.
Beer. Okay, so Basically, you and your whole family got locked up in your house for 40 days.
40 days and 40 nights.
Guards made sure nobody escaped with padlocks and all.
That's crazy.
Nurses would come in if you needed them to take care of you, bring supplies. But this literally meant sick people and healthy people in the same family were stuck together.
Yeah, which makes no sense.
Yes, death sentence, right?
Literally. Did they have the plague doctor mass in this time frame?
They did.
Yeah, I thought so. Because all they did was nothing besides the smell.
Yeah.
It's just wild that I still love that Xavier went for that as Halloween last year.
Yeah, that's funny. So what actually happened to these families locked up in their homes? Plague historian Justin Champion dug through London archives and found clues that suggested people did survive from these quarantine homes.
I would imagine at least some did.
Why would you think that?
Because, I mean, different people react to different things with immunity and so on.
Right.
Whereas, like, you know, Nathan has a more compromised immune system than you or me even.
Yeah.
So, like, something might affect him more than what would
or
affect
harsher,
you and me.
yeah.
Right. So clearly that's going to still be the case even with the Black Death.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So this historian compared plague records with burial records to see how many people in each household actually died from the plague.
Sure.
And he discovered that pockets where people seemed to have, that seemed, that where people seemed to have like actually fought off the disease.
Okay.
So the interesting thing that he found was that more people caught the plague than actually died from the plague.
And they caught it because they were contained with other people with the plague?
But they didn't die.
Right.
Yes. So to figure out why some of these people survived, a scientist by the name of Stephen O'Brien needed a place that had been hit by the plague and where there were records of people surviving quarantine.
Okay.
And he found that in the village called Eyam. It's spelled Eyam.
Okay.
And it's in Derbyshire.
Oh, yeah.
Derbyshire.
Like, I don't know.
It's in Pride and Prejudice.
Is it really?
Derbyshire. Yeah.
Oh.
So Eyam's story was really unusual.
Okay.
And it was perfect for O'Brien. So it was tucked away far from like England's main trade routes. It was out in the country. And Eyam probably would have avoided the plague altogether if it hadn't been for one package in the mail.
Seriously?
Yes. In September 1665.
Good month.
The plague was raging again in London. Well, that was the week. September was the month where 7,000 died in a week.
Wow.
A package arrived in Eyam for the village tailor.
Ah, fucking tailor.
And it contained cloth from a London warehouse. And the tailor hung up. For some reason, it was a little damp, so he hung it up to dry.
Probably because it was soaked in plague.
So he probably like shook out the cloth.
Oh.
And in it, the plague-carrying fleas.
Oh, dear.
So little red marks appeared on his hands, and he didn't realize, and really nobody did in Eyam, that these marks were the plague, and he did die soon after.
I would imagine that they knew what was at least going on elsewhere, though, right?
Maybe not how it presented,
right?
But yes.
They knew there was an issue elsewhere.
But they knew that the plague finally reached their town.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
So based on the orders from the rector, which is a clergyman, they issued a quarantine.
Sure.
So a nearby town, so like the whole town is under quarantine.
Yeah.
So a nearby town would actually deliver food in an isolated field, like next to a boulder.
And then they would have a certain time they dropped it off, and then an hour later they'd go pick it up, kind of thing.
Yeah, and on this boulder would be coins for the people who were delivering the food.
Oh,
and the villagers of Eyam would like wash these coins in vinegar so as not to spread the plague, and then that's how they would pay.
So vinegar, all they needed to do is just soak themselves in vinegar?
Yep.
I mean, that seems kind of basic.
Well, there wasn't a whole lot of sanitation going on, so that's what they had.
No, I mean, hygiene isn't what it is today, obviously, so, yeah.
So The village of Eam stayed in quarantine for a whole year.
Holy crap.
Before anyone stepped foot inside the town.
Like from outside of
From
Eam?
outside, yeah.
Okay.
And they were met by survivors.
Well, yeah, of course.
433 people survived.
Out of how many? Please tell me that was part of your research.
A lot more than 433 people.
Well, if there was only 434 people and 433...
That's amazing.
I mean, that's pretty good fucking odds. Do you not have that number?
No.
Bradley strikes again.
So they were wondering if the village had even actually been hit by the plague at all.
Clearly, because they need a new tailor.
Too many survivors.
Right.
So the idea was that maybe it wasn't the plague, but anthrax.
Like the band? Did you ever hear them? They're pretty good. Scotty Ian?
Anthrax had some similar symptoms.
Okay.
And it can be spread from animals to people.
Right.
But anthrax is rarely fatal in humans, but it is deadly in sheep and cows.
How about goats?
Sure. So if it was anthrax, their livestock would have been wiped out.
Oh, sure.
So historians checked the villagers' wills.
Okay.
So instructions basically on what to do with their stuff after they died, including livestock.
Makes sense.
The number of livestock mentioned before and after the plague was pretty much the same.
So not anthrax.
So it's not anthrax.
Yeah.
It was the plague.
I didn't realize I mean, I don't know when anthrax came about, but I didn't realize it's that old even, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So one possible reason Eam had so many survivors could have been that they were so isolated and not crammed into London.
Sure.
Another possibility was their social class being a role. But even so, with quarantine, the village probably would have been wiped out.
How far away from London was Eam again? Do you remember?
Several hundred miles.
It was a ways away.
It's a ways away. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You have to look back.
Yeah, it's several hundred miles.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are a couple stories coming out of this town. One is from Elizabeth Hancock. Her family lived at the edge of the village and avoided the plague for a while, but then in August of 1666, her youngest son, John, got sick.
Okay.
Right after this, his sister Alice did as well.
Oh, boy.
Elizabeth took care of them. They both died, and over a week, Elizabeth buried 6 of her children and her husband.
So Jesus Christ. So how many children did they have if she buried 6 of them?
All 6.
Oh, all 6 of them.
And her husband.
So she's now a widow and not a mother.
Elizabeth never got the plague.
See, that's wild.
And she was constantly exposed.
And it has to do with this gene that you brought up earlier?
Potentially.
Oh, stay tuned.
And if you ever go visit Eam, their graves are still on the hillside.
I'm pretty sure I'm never going to be there.
Let's make a trip.
I'd love to.
Let's take the gang and let's go.
Let's go on the Black Plague tour.
So another story is Margaret Blackwell.
Oh, Margaret, yeah.
So near the end of her illness, so she contracted it, and then near the end of her illness, she was completely delirious, super thirsty, and completely out of it. She stumbles into the kitchen, grabs a jug thinking it was milk, and started chugging it, but it was bacon fat.
Oh, jeez.
Somehow she survives. She gets better.
That's impressive. So there.
People are like, it's bacon fat.
Bacon fat.
Yeah.
Here's the Black Death Plague, whatever.
Yeah. And then there's Marshall Howe.
Who?
Marshall Howe.
How does he do what?
Marshall Howe.
How now, brown cow?
This guy is a self-proclaimed grave digger. He'd go to houses of people dying from the plague, bring out your dead.
But I'm not dead yet.
Not dead yet. Yes, you are.
You will be soon.
He would grab any valuables that he could find and then cart off the bodies. He handled tons of infected corpses.
And he
never got sick.
That's wild.
So this brings us to gene Delta 32.
That's what it is, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the scientist, O'Brien, his idea was the folks that lived through the plague in Eam might have had some special genes that kept them safe.
Is he Irish?
No, I think he's American.
Irish American?
Potentially.
His name's O'Brien.
Yes, I know. Potentially Irish American.
Just curious.
But he was hoping that genes would then be passed on, right?
Okay.
So if you do wander through Eames Cemetery, you'll notice like a bunch of family names, the Hancocks, the Blackwells, showing that these families stuck around for generations.
Even after all this?
Yes.
Okay.
So those villagers who had survived, they passed their DNA on to their kids and so forth.
Right.
So O'Brien's thinking was maybe those survivors had some special genes that kept them safe, and he wanted to find them. So the fact that so many people in Eam today are related to those survivors helped quite a bit.
Sure.
And he needed each villager, and they complied. Each villager took a DNA swab to the inside of their cheek to get gene tested.
Okay.
Yeah. So O'Brien was interested in gene, the Delta 32. He wanted to see if this particular gene protected against the plague. And Eam was the perfect place.
Well, it sounds like
it was like a little time capsule with all these generations.
Well, right. And that's the nice thing is because it was more or less contained within that town. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, and like you go to London, you're going to have fucking shit everywhere.
Yeah.
But you get a nice little sample, if you will.
Yeah. So DNA samples from Eam were sent off to University College London.
Okay.
If the gene wasn't there, O'Brien's theory was bust then. Okay. But if it was there, it opened up this whole new field of research. The idea that genes could actually protect people from the freaking plague.
So I don't know if you get to this later, let me know, but is the Black Plague still like a thing?
I will tell you.
Okay, cool. Stay tuned, folks.
So a team in London led by Dr. David Goldstein analyzed these samples.
Okay.
If Delta 32 really does offer some protection against the plague, and since Eam was hit hard, the descendants of the survivors should have had more of this mutation, right?
Sure.
So the whole thing depended on whether the villagers could actually prove that they were related to these survivors. So O'Brien sat down with a bunch of these villagers and they went through their family trees just to prove that, we are descendants. So then we have Dr. Rick Titball. He was digging into how the plague bacteria, attacked our bodies.
Okay.
So he discovered that lots of disease-causing germs have a special way of getting in.
Sure.
Kind of like a doorway into our cells.
Okay.
When the plague bacteria gets into the bloodstream, our white blood cells go after it. That's like the immunity response.
Yeah.
But the plague is super stinky.
Oh.
Super stinky plague. It gets inside the white blood cells and takes over these white blood cells. And
then basically your immune system is shot. Then.
It uses the white blood cells as rides to the lymph nodes, which are like the immune center headquarters.
So are they kind of like surfing in your blood?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
But like inside the bubbles, inside the cells like a bubble.
Yeah, and they're riding that wave.
Exactly. So once they break out of these cells and attack the whole system, which is why the plague was so deadly.
Right.
So the idea that a gene like Delta 32 might block that doorway into our cells, stopping the plague bacteria from even getting in, that would be incredible, right?
Uh-huh.
So 3 weeks after the DNA samples were taken in Eam, the results came back. Delta 32 was present.
Oh.
Turns out 14% of the Eam descendants had it.
Okay.
So O'Brien was on the right track. So what did this 14% mean? Was it connected to the plague? To find out, they needed to compare Eam results with other places.
Sure.
Okay. So O'Brien got scientists from all over the world to map out this gene. And as the data started trickling in, he was looking at Africa, South America, Asia, no Delta 32. So O'Brien said it was like being on a bloodhound on a scent, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So he started uncovering the secrets of Delta 32 that he was sure that was the absolute answer.
Okay.
And after searching the whole world, O'Brien made a discovery. The amount of Delta 32 in Eam was only matched in other parts of Europe right along the paths of the Black Death.
Oh, really?
Mutations like Delta 32, usually disappeared unless they have a huge survival advantage.
Which is what?
Survival of the fittest.
Right.
So the Black Death is coming in and the gene starts to mutate because of the plague.
Okay.
So Delta 32 was super unusual and had become really common in these European ancestors. But the only explanation that made sense with this deadly disease outbreak that could have wiped out millions, it was pretty sure that the outbreak was the Black Death.
Yeah.
The way Delta 32 spread matched the plague's path perfectly.
Okay.
But they needed to still figure out the date.
Right.
When did this mutation happen? So if they could pinpoint exactly when the gene became so common in Europe, then they could confirm that if it was caused by the plague.
Okay.
Months of work passed.
I'm sure.
And they came up with a mathematical formula. The idea was to estimate the age of the mutation by looking at nearby genetic markers. So scientist O'Brien and Dr. Goldstein analyzed samples from O'Brien's worldwide database. And by looking at tiny differences in the genes, they could trace back to the original mutation, and they found it.
Really?
The gene exploded in Europe about 700 years ago, right when the Black Death hit.
So that the original 1346 or whatever it was?
Yes.
Okay.
So the mystery of the plague survivors was finally kind of solved. The evidence pointed to Delta 32. And it seemed to explain how the plague bacteria was blocked from getting into human cells.
Okay.
But there was another puzzle.
Oh, dear.
Lots of people in EAM hadn't just survived. Many didn't get sick at all.
Yeah, which that's the part of the question is like, well, why not?
So if the gene completely blocked the bacteria, what was the explanation? Elizabeth Hancock, she never got the plague.
And her whole family did.
Her whole family did.
Right.
She had, potentially, because we don't know.
Correct.
2 copies of Delta 32, one from each parent.
Oh, so both her parents had it and passed it on to her, whereas if only dad had it and mom didn't, then they might have been a little more susceptible to still getting it.
Right. She might have been sick, but maybe not pass.
Yeah, might not have died, but she could have got it and got sick and so on. Interesting.
So the people with just 1 copy, like Margaret Blackwell, who got the plague but recovered after drinking bacon fat.
Oh, jeez.
She probably only just had 1 copy of the Delta 32.
Right, because she got sick.
Yes.
So, okay.
So this little genetic mistake, mutation, Delta 32 protected families of the plague for generations.
Right.
But there's one more thing.
What's that? I finally got one on tape for you.
If Delta 32 protected against the plague, then those survivors would have had to pass down that unique ability to fight other diseases.
Okay.
So what other serious creepy similarities does the Black Plague have with a modern day killer? That would be AIDS.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Apparently they have very similar.
So Black Death and AIDS are like brother and sister.
Or maybe like stepkids. Something.
Or maybe first cousins once removed. Or
something, yeah.
I still don't understand how that all
so
works. But.
If we go to 1980, San Francisco, the gay community was celebrating like never before. Everybody was out, time of pure joy. And a guy by the name of Steve Crone, right in the middle of it.
Okay.
He described it as a time of like self-expression, music, disco, drugs, dancing, etc. But doctors had already started noticing a mysterious disease affecting gay men. Dark purple blotches appeared on the skin, lymph nodes swelled, and they noticed, okay, this is really, really bad.
Yeah, of course.
Steve Crone was oblivious to this danger. For him and his friends, California was carefree, untroubled, until his lover, Jerry, got sick.
Oh.
Nobody knew what it was, but it was a total nightmare for them.
Sure.
Jerry was sick for 15 months without a diagnosis. He went blind.
Oh, geez.
Lost a ton of weight, had a virus in his liver, and went through all sorts of tests.
Yep.
And it was a mystery how this like healthy, vibrant 34-year-old started acting like an 85-year-old. Like that's how much his body diminished.
I bet, yeah.
Jerry died on March 4th, 1982.
Boo.
He was only the 5th person in America to die of AIDS.
That's crazy.
He was the 5th.
Wow.
Yeah. So everybody in San Francisco had no idea that this virus was spreading. Mm-hmm. And Crone watched it completely rip through his family and friends.
Sure, yeah.
He lost 70 to 80 people over the next 10 years.
He owned that many? Oh, sorry.
I mean, acquaintances, friends, family members.
I was joking.
Yeah. So over the past 2 decades, AIDS has caused 18 million deaths worldwide.
Well, that number is probably kind of skewed worldwide because isn't the majority in Africa?
I don't know.
I would think, because isn't that still like a thing, ongoing thing in Africa?
I mean, it's an ongoing thing everywhere.
Well, obviously, but so is the flu.
Yeah.
But I'm saying...
I don't know if Africa has the majority of it.
I want to say that's something I heard. I could be completely wrong, but yeah. I think there's a huge problem with it over there still.
So the HIV virus became a major killer pretty much right up there in infamy with the Black Death.
Right.
So just like the plague, AIDS attacks the immune system.
Yep.
And just like the plague, some people seem to be more resistant to the virus than others.
Sure.
So scientist Stephen O'Brien was super fascinated by this, and comparing the two diseases, he found that HIV, just like the plague, tricks the immune system. Mm-hmm. It targets the exact same blood cells and hijacks them. Once inside, the virus can completely wipe out the body's immune response.
Right.
So,
and basically what happens when that does that is like you're susceptible to any type of flu or whatever, and it could just literally kill you because your immune system's like shut down, basically.
Right.
Right.
And then AIDS attacks pretty much your immune system.
Well, that's my point. Yeah.
So this whole other mystery might have been solved if it weren't for this guy, Steve Crone. Okay. After losing his lover and so many friends, Crone assumed he'd get sick too. As his lifestyle was exactly the same, why would he be any different?
Yeah, it's a good assumption because of what you just said.
Right.
So, yeah.
But he never got sick.
Okay.
Test after test, he came back negative for HIV. So he mentions this to a relative at a party, and the relative was like, hey, researchers often study the one person in the family who doesn't get sick to a hereditary disease. Mm-hmm. Why don't they study you?
Right.
And Crone was like, okay. Yeah, why aren't they studying me? So he started to make phone calls. He called doctor after doctor after doctor looking for trials.
Sure.
And there were never any. Nobody was studying HIV negative men. But he did find one. His name, coincidentally, is Bill Paxton.
Oh, like the actor.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
Paxton was young, ambitious, and he really wanted to make a difference in the AIDS crisis. So he convinced his boss at the Aaron Diamond AIDS Research Center in New York to let him do an experiment.
Okay.
Paxton's idea was to analyze the blood of people at high risk for HIV who had never gotten it. And he wanted to find out clues of like how the virus worked.
Yeah, why?
So he needed blood from people like Steve. So the center didn't have any studies on these HIV negative men, negative but like exposed men. Yeah. But Paxton knew that they existed. So
sure, yeah, of course.
Paxton took a sample of Crohn's blood and exposed it to 3,000 times the normal amount of HIV needed to infect a cell.
Holy shit.
Massive dose, right?
Yeah.
Steve's cells were never infected.
That's crazy.
Paxton initially thought that he had messed up. Maybe the culture was contaminated. So he tested Steve again and again and again.
Still the
and
same
each
result.
time, same result.
Wow.
Something was blocking the virus.
Yeah, of course.
So when Paxton looked at the DNA, he noticed that unlike the cells of people with HIV, Steve's cells had a blocking mechanism and the virus couldn't get in. Hello, Delta 32 gene.
Yeah.
So, real explanation of why Crone never got HIV, right?
Okay.
It was this gene passed down from his European ancestors.
And got it probably from both mom and dad.
Yes, yeah, exactly, right. Yes.
Or at least it was within each of that family line.
Somewhere, yeah. So people with just one copy of Delta 32, which is about 1/5 of the population, showed a delay in developing AIDS if they got infected. About 1% of people in Britain and America, so about 3 million people, like Steve Crone, had 2 copies of this gene.
Right.
So this gives them total resistance to AIDS.
Because they have this
They
2
have
copy.
2. Yeah. So these folks don't have like a doorway that HIV needs to get into their cells, essentially. So they're
blocking it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't collect $200, don't move forward, right?
Don't go past go.
That's the one.
There it is.
So even if they're exposed over and over again, they don't get infected.
Right.
Huge breakthrough. So by figuring out the mystery of the plague survivors, O'Brien had actually made an even bigger discovery.
Yeah, no kidding.
The people who survived the plague in Europe gave their descendants an incredible gift, right?
Yeah.
Protecting from one of the most terrifying killers of our time, which is AIDS.
Yes.
And now understanding how Delta 32 protects against HIV has opened up this whole new field of research.
So can you can't just give somebody gene Delta 32. They have to be born with it?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, it is a mutation that is passed down through,
Right.
yes.
So there's not something that can be like synthetically produced.
I don't know if it can be synthetically produced. That was not part of my research, but that would be super fucking cool.
Well, I mean, you almost wonder how do we give this to everybody?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this can fucking stop.
Yeah. Let's start with the children's hospitals, shall we?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So let's fast forward to 2016.
That is only 9 years ago.
Digging for a new escalator at a train station in London,
Okay.
they discovered a burial site.
A new escalator?
Yeah, they were digging for an escalator.
That's weird. Okay.
They found 3,500 skeletons in this mass grave.
Wow.
They suspected it was a mass grave from the Great Plague of London.
Sure.
And if you want to know where, it's right in the heart of London called Liverpool Street. There's like a big train station there.
Okay.
So DNA testing confirmed it was the Great Plague that killed these people
Jeez.
in the 1665 outbreak.
Right.
So here's the thing. Scientists also confirmed something that they had expected or suspected, but they weren't 100% sure until now.
Okay.
And this answers your initial question. The Great Plague of London is the bubonic plague.
Oh, it is?
The bubonic plague was the Black Death from the 1300s.
Oh.
They are all one and the same.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I don't know if you recall this because you're Kate. But basically, this is, if you remember when I did Ring Around the Rosie,
Yes.
that's where that all came from.
Yes, they suspected that's where it came from.
Right. My question that I was trying to formulate before was, so obviously if you have the double set of Delta 32, if you only have the one, yes, you can still get sick. Like, what's the survival rate?
I don't know what the survival rate, but I'm assuming that
Obviously,
with
it's
today's
better.
advancements
Well, right.
as well, they're probably going to have a pretty healthy life.
Okay.
Yeah. So bubonic plague, Black Death, Great Plague of London, all the same thing.
Interesting.
Isn't that cool? So this was literally the first time that these 3 outbreaks were officially linked.
Sure,
There was
yeah.
always speculation, but
Okay.
officially linked. So today, the plague, bubonic plague,
Yes.
not officially gone.
No.
No. As of May 2024, there are still a few cases reported in the U.S. each year.
That's crazy.
About 7. They have an average of 7 cases
A year?
just in America.
That's wild.
And it's mostly in New Mexico.
What?
I don't know why.
That's strange.
New Mexico and Arizona. Sorry, Mom and Dad, but you got to watch out for that.
Keep an eye on your bubons.
Yeah. So most human cases since the 1990s have been in Africa.
Okay.
So I don't know about AIDS, but the plague.
I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, there's always a problem
Yeah.
with that there,
Yeah.
from what I understand. Again, I haven't done any full-blown research, but
Yeah.
I feel like it's quite an epidemic over there still. But isn't it wild to think that, well, potentially from 3000 BC to today, which is over 5,000 years, that this thing has existed.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
It's just wild to think it's been around that long and still pops up in New Mexico and Arizona. What the shit?
In California, there was one in Chicago. Like, there's one in the UP.
See, isn't that weird, though, that there was one?
Mm-hmm. There's one. Someone traveled.
And that's probably what it was.
Yep.
And with how we can travel so easily these days, it's just wild to think. But it's like, well, how is that still around? It just blows my mind. But
there was a graph that showed between, I don't remember the original year, up until 2022, and the average number of people who caught the plague versus who died. And if I can find that, I'll put that in our social media. Sure. But 2022, I don't think there was anybody that had the disease.
That was a good year. There's I don't remember what kind of, it's like not a chiropractor. I don't know. There's a doctor office on this road in a town not too far off from where I grew up. And I still pass it, and it's like something bubon. I always think of the bubonic plague when I pass the sign. Yeah. Like, protect your bubons. But anyways.
Yeah, so that's the story of the gene Delta 32 and how it was found and how it ties into AIDS and the bubonic plague.
So now we just got to figure out how to use it to our advantage. Then. Yeah. Because cool, you got that, but that person doesn't. Let's give it to them. Yeah. How do we figure that out?
I think it's crazy that DNA just recently confirmed that all 3 of these outbreaks were the same thing.
I wonder if that's why I always got them wrong. Not wrong per se, but like mixed them up.
And they all had like different areas of where the epidemic was.
Well, I'm sure. Yeah, that's not surprising. Yeah. It broke out here, trickled over there. Yeah. This one broke out here, trickled over there, whatever the scenario is. But, yeah, it's really wild that that's actually the same thing. Because they always were portrayed as literally 2 different things.
They were, yeah.
But the fact that it killed a third of the population of Europe. Yeah. That was the 1346 one, right?
I think so, yeah. 1347, yeah.
I was a year off. I apologize for my indiscretion there. But 33% of the population, that's a lot of fucking people.
It's a lot of people.
I mean, you look at today's population, 33%, it's like, that's almost like Thanos numbers. I mean, you're only 17% off from killing half. So, I mean, that's pretty wild. That's a lot of fucking people. Yeah. So, no, that's crazy.
And like I said, it was around since like 3000 BC.
Potentially almost 5,000 years ago.
There was something that was mentioned where they think that it was fleas on rats that did it, and you had mentioned that rats did the bubonic plague.
Which is probably the fleas. Yeah, right.
And in London, they actually did like this big mass execution of a lot of animals, dogs, cats, because they thought it was carried by animals.
By any animal.
When really it was the fleas.
The fleas, yeah.
Yeah, it was the fleas, yeah.
Which, you know, I get why they did what they did.
Where the hell did the fleas get it? I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's like, how did it manifest in the fleas? Like, were they the origin of it? Was it something that just attached to the fleas? It's weird to think about stuff like that, but are you typing on purpose, or are you just typing?
Okay, so it's possible that it did come from a rat, and then like the fleas were biting the rats, and then the fleas, they would find a new host, and
is that how fleas sound?
You never know. Okay?
I mean, no, that's why I asked.
You have bad ears.
What?
So anyway, Delta 32.
I feel like we need to use that to our advantage, though.
Yeah.
So cool, we know about it. That's great. Well done, O'Brien. I mean, okay.
He should get the, like, what's it called? The Nobel Peace Prize. Did
he really create peace, though?
I mean, peace in the immune system.
He pieced it together.
He kept it whole.
Did he, though? But no, it's like, okay, I'm not discounting what they discovered. What does that do for us?
There is a whole nother field of research that they are going to partake in.
Which is what?
hopefully giving it to the rest of us synthetically.
But you can't.
We don't know.
Because it's genetic.
We don't know what they can do.
Well,
we don't know.
By the time they figure it out.
Listen, I did this on Gene 32 and the Black Plague that happened to also be in AIDS. Okay, let's move on. How do you like your beer?
It was delicious. I'm really sad that both of mine are done.
Good thing you have more in my fridge.
I sure do.
Should I have one more sip of the Carbliss?
Do you really want to? Wow. That was
it's the sugar. It's the fake sugar.
Yeah, let's go with that.
I'm going to stop drinking that now.
I told you to never buy it.
I will listen to you from now on.
Please.
About the Carbliss.
Yes. I am all about trying new beers on our podcast. Mm-hmm. First of all, not a beer. Second of all, no. Just what? What is up with the snake weird face you're making?
Well, I suppose.
Yuck, yuck, yuck. I don't even know what to say because you said both.
Well.
She supposes. All right, buffoons. That's it for today's episode.
Buckle up because we've got another historical adventure waiting for you next time. Feeling hungry for more buffoonery? Or maybe you have a burning question or a wild historical theory for us to explore?
Hit us up on social media. We're History Buffoons Podcast on YouTube, X, Instagram, and Facebook. You can also email us at historybuffoonspodcast@gmail.com. We are Bradley and Kate. Music by Corey Akers.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts and turn those notifications on to stay in the loop.
Until next time, stay curious and don't forget to rate and review us.
Remember, the buffoonery never stops.